Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.
Bro. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night. We are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. I'm your host, Don Yazzie.
Co-host Darren Yazzie.
Yep, and welcome. If you joined us after the show called The Chat, which is a great show, such as every show on the UPRN is all a great show. So tonight we have a guest, and he'll go by Mr. Jamie. So let's get the show started, shall we?
Oh yeah.
All right. Hello, Nelly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, hey, there we go. Yeah, it's Ed.
Oh,
How are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
I'm good.
Yeah, it's a real honor to have you here. And I'll just Jamie's from the Four Corners area, heavily more on the Colorado side of the Four Corners. And Mr. Jamie has many great stories, and such as Skinwalkers, Bigfoot, and one of the more mysterious deities in the Four Corners in the Southwest from the Navajo tribe. So maybe we'll get into that, but we shall see. But Mr. Jamie, can you introduce yourself and to all the listeners out there, please?
I'm the Nat from the Navajo Nation. My family's from Utah. I grew up in Colorado. And I spent a lot of my youth on the Navajo Nation, Monument Valley, Many Farms area, as well as Utah. What is it? Near Annis Montezuma Creek area.
Montezuma Creek area, huh? That's one of the areas where the Great Yeli comes from. So just for the listeners out there, I was wondering if you don't mind giving out your TikTok handle to follow you, because you do tell some great stories, and you do have a lot of great followers that love to hear your stories and your accounts and all that great stuff, if you don't mind.
So for the TikTok listeners, I'm sure you've heard me chime in every now and again during their live streams on TikTok. My screen name is ptang12 on TikTok. And yeah.
Oh yeah. You guys don't remember P10?
No. The voice kind of changed. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's get into it. Jamie, could you start us from the start of your life, where you can remember the paranormal events or accounts that you can remember, like that?
Well, just like any other kid that's Navajo, we spend a lot of time on the res with my son, our Chays, and our Nollies, and we hear a lot of stories about what they've encountered, what they've experienced, what they've seen. And My earliest encounter with the supernatural was when I was a child. I remember one summer we were at my grandma's on the res. We were sleeping in a hogan, and it was a modern hogan, an octagon. Off to the north, my aunt had her truck parked there, and my parents had their truck parked on the south. And something jumped on the hood of the truck, so you can hear the metal, like something jumping on there. And then it jumped onto the cab, and then it jumped onto the roof of the hogan. And you can hear it walking back and forth on top of the roof. And I was just a child, so the excitement and everybody kind of getting worried, like, what is that? That woke me up. And I remember it, the sounds of something walking on the hogan roof. And pretty soon it kind of started running around in a circle on top of the hogan. And I remember my mom saying, "What is that? Go check." And my dad went outside with the flashlight, and they went to the north to the truck where they heard the sound of it jumping onto the hood. But before they opened the door, it ran off. You can hear it just like it dashed off, jumped on the truck, and then that was it. They went outside to go look, and they didn't see anything because they went to the north side of the hogan, but my mom went to the south side. She didn't have no flashlight. And that was it. And then the next morning, my dad actually went outside and he looked around the hogan, and there was these odd footprints on the west side of the hogan. And that was when my mom said, "Don't tell me that it went around the truck and hid underneath when I went this way." And my dad goes, "It looks like it." And of course, me being curious, I went outside to take a look at those tracks, and they were odd looking tracks. They weren't dog, they were something in between like a human footprint and a dog footprint. It left tracks on the west side around the hogan where it ran. It was just so weird. Like, you don't see animal tracks like that. That was my first encounter with something like that. I didn't see it, but I heard it. And then the second time was somebody had done some stuff to my cousin. They And of course, our elders would always say, get a hakati, we need to have that person, do something, fix them. The medicine man was there. They went across over to the house. We stayed in the hogan. I stayed with my cousin. They went to over to the house next door to eat. And my uncle sarcastically grabbed a Wineshkish and he threw it beside my cousin. And he goes, "Dishi Bixen, let's see what, see if it's going to help you." And he laughed and he walked out. A few minutes later, something jumped into the fireplace because it was one of those, how most hogans, we have those iron fireplaces that with the chimney that goes all the way up inside, like most hogans. Well, whatever that thing was, it jumped into that stove, because you can hear doo doo doo, and then it went up the chimney, all the way up. You can just hear it. And my cousin, that was the patient, she sat up and she looked at me, and she says, "Did you hear that?" And I was speechless. I just shook my head like, did that just happen? So those were my very first encounters, realizing that the supernatural is real, like what our people practice, their medicine. There is a good side and there is a dark side. That was as a child. Now, during that time, I used to ask my parents, my dad, and my uncles, because I was fascinated with what a skinwalker is. What is that? Hi'ila Olia is what I would always ask. And my grandma used to tell me stories. How they practice their craft, what they use, how they do it. And I was fascinated with it as a kid because, you find Bigfoots, aliens, and, these cryptos you're drawn to and you're interested in it. And I just thought, wow, these stories are really interesting to hear, is all I thought at the time. But my parents told me several different stories from different areas. Like one story that my father told me was there was somewhere in Utah they used to have a festival where they would race horses. And he said that this person had a horse that was trained to chase down jackrabbits. So the horse is very nimble. And after the festivities was over, in the morning he was heading back to where he lived. And he was riding his horse down a gully. And he saw a coyote run out from behind a sagebrush. So he thought, well, why not? I'll chase this coyote down. So he loosened the reins on the horse, and the horse darted right after the coyote. And as quick as that horse was, he was he got really close to catching that coyote. And he says that the coyote started whimpering. And he goes, "Nas open there's stars," and you can see where it ran. And he goes, when he got over to where it ducked behind a sagebrush, he goes, the horse just stopped, like just came to a halt. And he looked over behind the bush and he said, there was a woman knelt down behind that sagebrush with her skin pulled down to her waist. From her waist down, she had the legs of a coyote. From the waist up, she was a woman. And she was decked out with turquoise jewelry. And she had paint on her, like glish. And the woman started pleading with him, please don't tell nobody. Don't tell anybody you saw me. I'll give you all this turquoise jewelry if you just let me go. And the guy goes, I don't want your jewelry because I know that came from a corpse. I don't want it. And she goes, I'll give you anything you want. Just let me go. Just let me go. And he kept pleading with her, or kept pleading with him. And he said, well, I'll let you go on one condition. I want to see you get back into your skin. And she says, it doesn't work like that. I can't do this while you're watching me. And then the guy thought, well, my horse is pretty quick. So he grabbed the reins and he pulled it. So you know how fast a horse can turn. That horse turned pretty quickly, but by the time he turned around, she was already back in her coyote skin and running up the hill. And I was like, wow, is that what they do? Is that what they're like? And then there was other stories, encounters, like from my knowledge that I was told as a kid. I always thought, wow, this is really interesting that our tribe knows how to do this. What is it? How did it come to be? And why do we use it? I started asking questions. And then when I got into my teens, that was when I started to see more. Like, we live on the Utah side of the Navajo Nation, so we have the San Juan River that's there. So that body of water separates us from the southern part of the Navajo Nation. So we don't have a lot of crazy stuff, too many crazy stuff on the northern side of the Navajo Nation as to what you see on the southern side. On the southern side, it's a bit more a free for all. Like you see a lot of crazy things down there. Um, but most of the stories are just like from interactions from medicine men and women that came to help my family, things I witnessed through them, my own personal experiences as well. I spent a lot of my summers with my grandma. And then as I got older, I would, spend most of my summers there, but I didn't go to school on the reservation. Um, but those were my first encounters growing up as a kid and into my teens that I seen um, how the world of the supernatural world within our tribe works. There's the world is not black and white. There's this huge gray area that people don't want to acknowledge. And I've seen things where no matter how hard I try to rationalize it, it still doesn't make sense. But I know what I saw and I remember it. One of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to sketch out what I seen so you guys have some visualizations of what it is that I saw. So you have something to show, you know, that correlates with your story, but I didn't get around to it because of my work schedule.
There we go. Good.
Wow. So, dang, that's quite a handful right there to start off with. So you kind of caught me off guard right there for a minute. But it's nice to have you on the podcast. And yeah, I'm kind of lost for words right now.
So, Jamie, how would at that age growing up, how did you deal with all this? How did it make you feel, and what was the best way that helped you cope with seeing and dealing with all this at a young age?
Um, it did make sense to me in the beginning because as a kid, when you see stuff like that, you just think you only see stuff like that in movies. Like the horror movies you watch, you think that can't be real. And but then you again, like I said, I grew up with stories about them, and I've seen medicine men and women do what they do to help the family. So at an early age, I was taught that our spirituality is something that Creator gave us, and that we've been practicing for since time immemorial, and that religion in itself, the Bible, is not for us, is what I was taught. So rather than be how some are, where there's that self denial, I never denied it. I know that's who we are, and my grandmother raised us with that knowledge. We are who we are for a reason. We are taught this for a reason, and yes, we are different from all of these people because what we practice is not for them; it's for us. So I didn't really think it was that too far fetched. To me, I always realized that, yeah, at a young age, I knew it's out there, but you know how some people are. They won't believe you until they see it right there in front of them. And if you're so caught up in the reality of things, of like, well, this can't be true. And again, you have to see it for yourself. And the people that I've actually had conversation with, my question is always, do you believe in ghosts? And then I would wait for their reaction. And then I would go by how they respond. Because one of the other experiences I had was my great grandpa. I saw the ghost of him. And we had come back from Farmington for, you know how during the first of the month, grandmas and grandpas get their checks, and we went grocery shopping. We got back home kind of late, so we pulled up to my grandma's house. We had the truck parked facing the house, and they were taking the groceries in, and my grandma went inside to light the kerosene lantern. Me and my cousin went to the outhouse, and as we were coming back, there was a man standing in front of the hogan. And me and my cousin just looked at each other like, who's that? And we just looked at each other and we're like, I don't know. And we just ran back over to the house and we told my parents and my uncle, there's a man standing over there at the hogan. I don't know who he is. My dad and my uncle went over there and there was nobody. They came back and there was like, there's nobody there. And my grandma was asking me and my cousin, like, who is it? What did you see? And we're like, I don't know who he is. He was just standing there. And my grandma was always the kind of person that what she taught me was children can see things more clearly through the veil because of their innocence. And they have stronger ties to the spirit world, is what she taught us. And as you get older, you kind of lose that connection. Some people retain it, most don't. So when we told her that, she took it very seriously. She goes, we're going to have to go see a medicine man and see what the kids saw. And so a medicine man came out and, he did, the crystal gazing for us. And he told my grandma, it's nothing bad. What the kids experienced is, she looked at my grandma and he told her, your father came back because he wanted to see how his grandchildren and his great grandkids were doing. And my grandma was just like, he had passed long, long, long ago. And I didn't think something like that was possible. And that was when he told us that, we still have ties to families that passed. You'll see them either in your dreams or you'll see them come, they'll visit you like that, is what they had told us. Fast forward, I was 15 and we were in my grandma's house. We were helping renovate the old house that she lived in. And there was a picture hanging in the kitchen. And I told my mom, who's that man? And the man was wearing he had Wrangler jeans, he wore boots, he had a Levi jacket on, and he had a cowboy hat. And he wore those Western shirts that most Chays used to wear back in the day. And I looked at my mom and I said, that's him. That's the man that I seen when I was talking about. That's him. And my mom goes, was that when you guys were kids and grandma had the medicine man come out? And I said, yep, that's him. And my mom goes, that's your great grandpa. And I told her, that's exactly how he looked. He just stood there and he waved at us. That's why I kind of thought, who was that? And I still remember it to this day very, very distinctly, where he was standing, how he looked, and that he waved, and he was smiling when he waved at us. And I just thought, that's interesting. It didn't scare me, but I'm one of those type of people where, our elders teach us, when you see something like that, ye do banjit ira, but I'm curious. I'm the kind of idiot that will go over there and look around and I want to see what that thing is. Instead of running the other way, I want to go investigate and check it out. I would say the first time that I noticed things were like I could kind of see things like that was when I was a teenager. I understood Navajo, but I didn't really speak it often. Um, as a child, I was fluent, but as most of us, once we get into school, we kind of stop speaking Navajo. We speak English more, and but in my teens, I tried to pick it up, retain the language more. So I started speaking it a little bit more. But there were words that I didn't understand because we don't use it in everyday language. Nobody talks that uses these words. I'll say, like I remember in one dream, I was shown what a hogan looks like inside of a cave. How they practice witchcraft. I was shown this is what it looks like. This is how the doorway to this cave faces the west, but the inside of the cave resembles a hogan. And I seen people sitting around a fire grinding corpse bones. And whatever was showing me this was talking to me, and it said, "Enti hulya without Dios." So I remembered it, and then the next morning when I woke up, I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, what does this word mean?" And then I told her, and she goes, "Where did you hear that from?" And I told her, and she just kind of looked at me, and she was like, "Okay." And there were like little instances like that where I would ask my mom, "What does this mean?" And how is that? And she would kind of just look at me in some confusion, like, "How do you know this?" So, yeah.
Just real quick for the listeners out there, the ones that don't understand Navajo, what Jamie was saying that in that dream, what the voice was saying was like basically telling him that this is their hideout, their hidden home, because when you say you're going to a Skinwalker cave or to a Skinwalker dwelling where they do their ungodly things, best way I can say it, when they do their things, it's called Inti Bahowan. So like the hidden home where you do your hidden things where the sun don't see, kind of like translation wise. And going back when he was talking about the Glash, yeah, hideout places. There you go. That's one of the best ways to translate a hideout. And so the Glash is like a white clay that they would put on their body in order for them to, shape shift and do what they can. And some of them put on like fat, just different things I've been hearing over the years. But yeah, that's for the non-Navajo speakers out there. So go ahead, Jamie. It's all you now.
Yeah, what they practice, how they do it is literally it's literally a perversion of the natural order of things. It's it's very disturbing. Um, I think because I was shown it and I've seen, like, in my mind, I've seen how they do it. Like again, like I said, sometimes when I'm sleeping, I I guess you can call it astral projection. Yeah, I'm taken somewhere and I'm shown these things. Look at this. This is what that is. And I just remember it the next morning. I'm like, wow, that is some pretty macabre stuff that they do. It's things that people would not expect it to be. But at the same time, it's I think the best way I can describe that whole scenario is they're secretive for a reason. And the way that this world is, the way that we're taught, what we're told, um, I really don't think people are ready to see what it is, see how they do it, because it's that disturbing. Even myself, I'm just like, ew, that's what you do? My judgmental self over here, I'm like, wet, that's what I think. But that's their choice. That's the path they walk. Um, My first experience of getting witched, where I became a victim of something like that, that was when I really knew, okay, this stuff is real. I didn't expect to be a victim of something like that, but it's crazy what these people do. Um, where we used to live, we had a medicine man come over, and this guy's never been to where we live. He just took a shovel out and he goes, right here, start digging. My dad started digging, and they took a buckskin bundle out. And I'm just like, who's, my inappropriate sense of humor, who lost their purse and buries it here? And he just laughed and, he opened it. And what he took out of that bundle was disturbing in itself. And I just kind of thought, why would someone go after me like that? Because I'm like, I'm not a millionaire. I don't have money. I'm not some big shot. I'm just a nobody. I'm just a kid. Why would they do this? But in a nutshell, I was just told that somebody wanted me, so I could get wild and be out there, be in a compromising, vulnerable position where they can come in and take advantage of me and corrupt me, was basically the reason why they did what they did. And then after that, that was when my mom just kind of reminded me, do you remember what your grandma used to say? And then I told her, I said, yes. My grandma used to say that no matter where you go in this world, there is evil that wear different faces. And you have to protect yourself and be aware of yourself, because there is always people that are going to corrupt what you have, either to use you or, you just can't trust anybody, is what she used to tell me. And I was like, that's so real. That's something that I've always been aware of myself when interacting with people. I don't shake hands with nobody. Um, I'm pretty much an introvert. I don't trust nobody outside of my family because of how people are. And the one thing I've also realized is it's not a stranger that's going to witch you per se. It's going to be someone very close to you. It's always a relative. And that's the one thing that I've always been kind of very pessimistic about my fellow Diné people. It's, if you want it, go out there and get it yourself. Who's stopping you? Why do you have to mess with other people because of your jealousy? Jealousy is a big problem with with us Navajos. It's just go out there, get it yourself. Why do you have to mess with other people? But people that practice the dark ways aren't always, right in the head. There's always something off about them, I've realized. Um, the very first time I actually had an encounter where I can say, yeah, that skinwalker was just right there on the other side of that door, was um, during COVID, during lockdown, where we had to quarantine ourselves. Where my family lives, my mom's house is just like next door, but next door to that is a trailer. When we first moved back to the res, this is like right as high school was over, we moved back to the res. Um, we used to live in a trailer before we got the house built. So the house is just next door. And there were these strange things that would happen around the house. We never had anything like that happen. We never had no fear. We had no fear of, sleeping with the windows open at night, just having the screen door locked at night. But for some odd reason, like during the pandemic, we started locking our windows and we never left the door open. And the dogs would always bark at night more than usual. And because I was over at the trailer by myself, I would tell my mom, I was like, do you guys ever see anything out of the ordinary? Like there's somebody walking around. Do you guys ever hear somebody walking around at night? And of course they're like, oh, you're just imagining things. And I'm like, I'm not imagining things. There's two people that come around here. It's a man and a woman. They come around this hill right here and they come up right here from the canyon. Like I was very specific. And my parents didn't know what to make of it. They were like, what, are you sure you're not? I was like, Mom, if I was hallucinating, I would welcome it. But this is like kind of X-File crap that I'm seeing because I don't know. I'm just telling you, is what I told her. And that man and that woman actually came into the trailer with me. I heard them walking down the hallway. They weren't like, stomping. They were like slowly walking. And of course, at night, noise travels, especially in a trailer. When somebody's walking down the hallway, you can hear that. And I sat there listening, and they stood by the door. When they got by the door, it was as if time stopped and everything went deathly silent. And the temperature dropped in that room, where when I breathe, you can see my breath like as in the winter, like when you're outside in the cold, it was like that. And I thought, okay, this is spring and it's not that cold. What's going on here? And I sat there just looking around the room and I didn't see nothing. And I thought, okay, they're outside that door. I got up and I walked outside, or I opened my bedroom door and I walked down the hallway. Whatever that thing was that came into the house, into the trailer, it went through the door, because the door is metal and the door went boom, like it opened and it slammed. But I didn't realize that the other one was in the kitchen underneath the table, and I just walked past it. I opened the door, I looked around, the dogs were barking. And then I closed the door and I went back inside and I went back to my bedroom. And I just thought, okay, maybe they're going to leave. The one that was in the kitchen went outside because I heard the door open and slam shut again. And I thought, what the heck? And I sat there listening, but in my bedroom, by the door, I had a Wineshkish in my room, so it didn't come into the room with me. I sat there and I can hear the dogs barking. On the west side of the trailer, I heard somebody praying. It was a woman. She was saying something. I tried listening, but I couldn't. It wasn't very audible what she was saying. And of course, at the time, I kind of got fed up. And I shouted out, "I can hear you!" And she stopped. And then the dog started barking, and they chased something down into the canyon. So I didn't see it, but you get that weird feeling that you're being watched. That was how I felt that whole night. And I kept thinking, okay, are they gonna leave? What's going on here? They stayed around until like about 3 in the morning, and then they left. The next morning I told my parents, I was like, did you guys hear the dogs? Did you guys see that? And she was like, no. We heard the dogs barking, but we didn't think anything of it. And then the next day, as I was sitting in there in my room, I was playing video games, and I had the windows or the curtains kind of closed, where there's just a little bit of light coming in. I heard the dogs barking again, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll see something, but I'll just look at the TV and kind of glance off, and off to my left to the window. The dogs were barking, and like when you have the curtains drawn, you can see like when something moves by the window, because it casts a shadow. And I seen it, and I thought, okay, so there's something by the window. And this is during, I'd probably say around noon. And I just kept playing video games, but I kind of kept glancing towards the window. And the weird thing about it was there was a guy looking through the window, and the trailer is kind of up high, so the window's not just right there. I would probably say the window is about 8 feet up. So you have to have a ladder, or you have to be standing on something to get up that high. But when I glanced over, there was he was like the ghost of a man, but he wasn't a full-sized man. He was small, but I got a good view of his face. Like he looked and he saw me, like he had that shock look, like because when I seen him, he ducked off to the side, and I thought, oh, that's who it is. And I kind of did my own little investigating, and I found out it was the woman that lives over the hill from us. Her in-laws, or whoever they are, they come from Crystal. They're a brother and sister that were over there. They were the ones that were doing it. And we had a hand trembler come over and look around the house and over at the trailer, and she told my parents they're constantly coming over here because they know that you can see them, and they're kind of interested. How is it you know things, and that's why they're trying to scare you. And I was like, why do I need to be afraid of them? Like, and I just thought, if I see them in public, I can point them out. I can say, I know that's you. Like, but my mom was like, no, don't, Janita. And I was like, what do I have to be afraid of them for? I know who they are. That's the weird thing was I got a little bit more insight during that spring and that summer, because it was a constant. It was daily, like almost every weekend something was happening out there. And I was like, we didn't have this out here. As a kid, we used to sleep outside, no fear, but ever since they moved in, we kind of had to be cautious. For example, when they're in coyote form, they would come up from the canyon. And you know how we have wood piles like a little bit away from the house. They would sit on the other side of the wood pile, and they would, I don't know, I would say it's their spirit, which kind of looks like a smoke, that would kind of float around, and you would see that. That's what the dogs see. That's what the dogs would chase. And I knew that they were around because the guy, when he sits there, he would go, woo, like he would try to imitate a coyote howling, but I'm like, dude, you don't even sound anything like an animal. You just sound like an idiot moaning out there. And then the dogs would start barking. And then I was like, okay, they're here, so I need to get my game face on. I got to get my ash, and I got to make sure I have my arrowhead, and I got to kind of be on guard to see what kind of shenanigans they're going to pull tonight. But they were just messing with me, thinking, like they were going to scare me. But I never backed down from anything. I was just like, you're just lucky that I'm not crazy enough to go out there by myself. If I had other people with me, yeah, I would probably go out there and take a look. But being by myself, I was like, that's not a good thing. So I just stayed indoors and I would just observe everything from the outside. But I learned that when they come to your house, they'll sit at a distance. Their physical bodies are there, but their spirit is what comes around the house, and that's how they watch you. What's the other thing? They've got body paint on when they do their drag change from animal to human. The other thing I notice is that whatever they use, whatever that paint is mixed with, that's what animals smell. We can't smell it, but animals can smell it, like dogs, cats, horses. They use a variety of things, like during the day I've seen medicine men use a distance, like when they're working on a patient, but I've never heard it at night. I heard this one at night a couple of times. You hear it from a distance and it gets louder and louder when it gets closer to you, and boom, they're just right there. And it's not their physical selves, they're like in ghost form. I guess that's their spirit. And that's how they move around. And I'm like, that's interesting. I just kind of made note of it, thinking, oh, okay, that's odd. That's okay, I get it now. That's how they do it. That's what they're attempting. And then the next morning I would just tell my parents, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, and they were just like, wow. And you're not afraid of them. And I'm like, why should I be? Like, and what are they gonna do? Like, give me a wedgie? Like, they can't even walk in here physically. Like, they always run off, you know. But my dad would always like, you should just be more cautious around them. And I'm like, okay, you know. But I've seen a big white dog at my family's too once. And I'm like, hey, whose dog is that? And everybody was like, I don't know, there's some dog, because we kind of lived near the road. We're on the other side of a hill. So some people always abandon their dogs alongside the road. And so sometimes we'll get a stray wandering around. And the dogs kind of didn't go near it. They kept their distance from it. And of course, I, being curious, went outside, and the dog seen me, and it kind of walked away from me, and I was like walking behind it, like trying to look at it. It was like it kind of resembled a Saint Bernard, but the face was not a dog. It was the face of a man. It didn't have a snout. It had human features, and its face, like, you can see paint on it. And I kind of just looked at it like, no way. And I walked behind it as it was going towards the horse corral. On the other side of the horse corral, there's a canyon down that way, down by the river. So it was headed out that way. And we have a security light. So the security light only, shines so far before it goes dark. I didn't go very far from the house. I just stopped. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to follow it out into the darkness. So I turned around and went back inside. And told my brothers. They're like, did you see that dog? Did you see that dog? Is that out there again? And I said, yeah. I was walking towards the corral, and my brothers went and grabbed their guns and spotlights, and we went out there on the ATVs and flashed around and, shot off a couple of warning shots, and it never came back that night. But when we got back to the house, I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, it was a big white dog, kind of abnormally big. And the weird part, it had a man's face. And my dad freaked out and was like, oh, okay, we need to get a medicine man. And they always thought it was kind of weird that things like that really didn't scare me that much. Again, my curiosity kicks in. I was like, I want to see that. What is that? Instead of running away from it. So yeah, I've seen that dog. There was another time where um, we were walking back. I was walking back from the horse corral over to the house, and I seen this dog. What I thought was a dog, I should say. As soon as I walked into like where the security light was, where the light shined, because I was walking um, between the houses from my grandmother's house over to my parents' house. That dog, like, just it didn't really come into the light, kind of kept its distance. It stayed like just where the light barely shined. And again, I thought it was a dog, but it was a weirdly colored coyote. It wasn't gray. It's kind of like it had a blackish color to it. And it was on four legs and it stood up. I mean, it literally stood up, and I'm like thinking, okay, what's gonna happen now? I'm thinking, oh crap, do I scream and run like the idiots in those horror movies, or do I just stand here and faint? I just stood there looking at it, and it just, I don't know. I guess it was trying to get a reaction out of me, but I didn't react in any way. I just stood there looking at it. It got back down on all fours and it just ran off. But when it ran off, it made a weird sound. It was just like, I don't know. It almost sounded like a horse running, just off into the darkness. I'm like, huh. Again, I told my parents, and my parents kind of freaked out over it. Um, yeah, those were stuff that happened around my families where they live. Those were things that I encountered out there. Uh, any questions? Any other things you guys want to ask?
Yeah. What would you recommend everyone out there listening that are experiencing things such as Skinwalker bothering them, coming around their house, and what would you recommend out there for them to do?
I was always told, Quineshkish, always keep that by your door. Always have your arrowhead like on your nightstand next to you. Bitter powder, always have that, and always have like some ash. Uh, I would say cedar, like from cedar wood, because when you burn cedar, the ash from it is white. That's more helpful than just any other wood. Jeanette, that's
So, Winesh gives for the non-Navajo speakers out there, that's the fire poker, your fire stick. It's a
the
very
magic.
valuable tool out there. Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I just said the magic stick.
Say that again.
The magic stick.
Oh, the magic stick. Yep. Yeah. So a lot of people on the reservation are dealing with a lot of things like that, and a lot of this information is very important to have, and to have someone very brave like you is very, very important. And hats off to you. we need more brave people like yourself, and thank you for existing out there. Um, uh, Out of all those experiences, which one scared you the most, or had you thinking otherwise?
Had me thinking otherwise was, see, like stuff that happens on the res, I understand why people do things, but that's with our own people. I get why they do this stuff like that. But I had moved away. I was in Florida and I had an experience numerous experiences out there with other nationalities and their dark arts. And I kind of thought to myself, I have nothing to do with you. Why are you coming into my space? And why are you bothering me? I just thought to myself, like, I could care less what you're about. You're my neighbor, but I don't say hi to you. I got nothing to do with you. But there it was. Apparently, they saw something about me that was threatening. I think it was because I could see them. Um, they tried scaring me, but I would just kind of look at them like, I come from a reservation where we have skinwalkers and we have like a bunch of other supernatural things. If you're gonna try and scare me, you need and I literally said that to that lady. Like, it was her shadow. Her shadow was standing there, and it moved freely. I saw it moving alongside the wall, and its eyes blinked, like its eyes were white. And I just looked at it like, okay. And then I had a chair in the corner of my bedroom. There was half a face that peeked out behind the chair and looked at me, and I'm just like, I think from their world, like, that's supposed to scare you. Like, that's the epitome of their voodoo. It was Jamaicans that I had an encounter with. And I just kind of looked at them like, dude, I didn't invite you over here. Why are you here? I got nothing to do with you. But it was a guy and a man and a woman. And they would peek out behind the chair, and it was half a face I would see. But you can see the paint on their face too. They would just kind of peek out, and I'm just like, again, I'm sitting here on my bed playing video games, and I just looked over and I saw it. And I kind of thought, okay. I just paused the game and looked over, and I was like, if you're gonna try and scare me, you need to step this up, because I come from a res where we have skinwalkers and we have a bunch of others. You got to step this up, because your scare tactic is pathetic, is what I told that lady, and she stopped. But before I had that interaction with her, like when they were trying to scare me, and in our guest bedroom, I seen a man standing there. He had a grass skirt on, and his body was painted. He had red, green, and white paint on him. And that guy lived in the building next door to us. And I recognized that it was him because he had dreadlocks, and his dreadlocks was tied up on top of his head. Like, oh, you're that dude that lives in unit such and such, is all I thought. And he literally just stood there, and then he just kind of faded into the shadow. And then after that, I thought, hey, that's interesting. That the other people, other spiritualities out there that are not so good. I've seen I've seen voodoo. I've seen the Mexican, what they call brujas. I've seen those. The only one that I can honestly say that I've never had a bad interaction with, they were very more helpful and kind, were like Asian people. Like I've seen some of them, and like I remember I was at DIA getting on the plane, and there was this old lady that she just kept smiling at me, and I kind of thought, okay, I just smiled at her and didn't say anything. But before I was gonna board my flight, I had to walk by her. she just reached out and she smiled and she said, what did she say? She goes, "You're one of the blessed." And I just smiled at her, and because I was in a rush to get on the, get in line for boarding. I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but later on, after thinking about it, I was like, okay, she was one of those people that saw me. And I thought, okay, and I didn't really think anything of it. Then I saw another lady tell me the same thing. And that was when I was at when I had a connecting flight in Dallas. We were on the same flight, and she just kept looking at me, and I didn't think anything of it. Like I said, I just kind of thought, oh, we're on a plane. You have these meaningless interactions with other passengers. But when we were, when we landed and we had to, go to our connecting flights, as I was getting off the plane, when we got into the building, she stopped me and she goes, "You have a light that shines very bright. Be careful of the people you're around, because that light can attract dark things." And I just kind of looked at her and I thought, what does that mean? But she just goes, "Just be careful." And I kind of thought, okay. And then when I got back home, because I was flying home to visit my family for the summer, and I told my mom, and my mom was like, "We should go, when we go see a medicine man or a woman, tell them your story and see what they tell you." And so I did, and I was told, yeah, people that walk in the light, when they have certain certain gifts about them, they do radiate a light, and that's probably what they're seeing. Because, and she just kind of, there was a lady that she was doing her asking, and she goes, "When I sit here and I have my eyes closed," she goes, "I can see that light shining from you." She goes, "It's really bright." And she goes, "From a distance, it's like almost like an aurora borealis on top of you," she goes. And I was like, scary. But I've learned to trust my instincts more, especially when you're in the outside world, because people, again, you're going to encounter things. You're going to have experiences that are not going to be the best, but you just have to remember that, you just got to tread carefully, is what I've learned, especially being a native here on Turtle Island, because most of what we see, what we know, our gifts come from the Creator, and we're from here. So a lot of people I've realized that they want to corrupt what we have. I've been told that some people want to use, like, I guess, your spirituality, so they can siphon it off of you to give them power, or they'll try to corrupt you in some way where they can use what you have to their advantage. I mean, there were so many different things that I was told to, where now I just tell other natives that I periodically come across, like, we'll have these conversations, and I would just tell them, don't really say anything about what you know and what you have, because there's a lot of people, especially right now, the way things are changing, and we have to protect ourselves. There's always that caution that we have to tread because of that. And as a kid, I always just thought, hey, we're all, we all have different spiritualities. we pray to our deities, our creators, but we just do it in different ways. Is what I thought in my, my naive mind back then. But now that I've gone older, I'm like, no, it's not that way. It's not everybody that smiles at you is kind. But yeah, so I've not just from the native standpoint, but other cultures, I've had to run in with them at some point or another to know that our spirituality, there is some weight to it.
So, in your time out there in the Floridas, so what part of the voodoo do you think is really similar to Navajo witchcraft, skinwalkers?
There is in the New Orleans area, they practice they call it hoodoo, and then there's another version that they call conjuring. The one from Jamaica they call obey, and again from our neighbors down South Mexico, the Brujas. Those were the ones that I've mainly had run-ins with. Um, the Brujas, they didn't really do anything to me. They just more on the scale of like, what is he? Like, how can he see this? He's not afraid of us. Like it was weird. It was very uncomfortable because I was at a hotel and the staff that was working at that hotel knew stuff like that because the front desk woman was the one that told the maintenance man and then the housekeepers, and they were like the ones that were watching me. And the interesting part there was all night, like I can see like little, almost look like a dark mass bubbling around the door because the room that I was in had those adjoining rooms that had the door there, and you can see something like around the door frame, and I'm like thinking, should I just open it? But then at the same time, I don't want to because you know I don't want to just let it come in. So I had a restless night that night because I just kept looking at them thinking, oh my god, what is this? And then I looked over towards the bathroom and they looked like little devils in a way. They weren't very tall, they were short. I would probably say about 3 feet in height, but they were skinny. And they had tails, which was weird. They were humanoid, but their eyes were glowing because there was two in the bathroom. One had red eyes, the other one had green eyes. And I could have dashed and turned the light on, but by the time I turned, they're going to exit the room. So I just kind of laid there looking at them. And I can see them peeking out behind the doorway, looking at me. And then my phone rang when I turned to go reach for it and turn the lamp on. I heard the adjoining door just kind of rattle and they went out that way. And I was like, huh. Well, that's interesting. Then in the morning, I just got up, got ready. I looked out the peephole of my room, and the housekeeper's laundry buggy was parked out there. And I got my stuff, and I was gonna check out anyways. So as I opened the door and I walked out, I went back into the room and I walked by that adjoining door, and I just kind of yelled out, I was like, "Gee, thanks for keeping me up last night, jackass!" And then walked out the door. I was kind of pissed off. I was like, these mofos, like, god dang. I Yeah, it's just so weird. It didn't scare me, like I said, because of the experiences I've had on the Navajo Nation already. So it was just something I just remembered. I was like, oh yeah, that's how they do it. That's what that is. And I remember it. And again, that's the reason why I wanted to draw what I seen so I can, share with you guys, and you guys will be like, oh, that's what he's talking about. One of the stories that I do have that my cousin told me happened out there near Hovenweep. I didn't get a chance to go out there personally because he passed before he could show me. But I remember his story. And he said it was out towards Hovenweep in Utah. He said there was a big rock out there that you can drive up beside and you can hike up alongside of it to the top. And he goes, yeah, we were booze cruising down there on the res and we went to this rock. It was a full moon, he goes, and we're like, hey, let's go out there and go hang out, just kill some time. And he goes, we went there, and he goes, I knew that you had to walk up that kind of that little butte to the top. And he goes, I just told my buddies that I was with, if you want to go up there, you're going to have to, hike up with your own beer. I'm not taking anything, he said. So I guess everybody took their drinks up there and they sat up there on top. And he goes, when you look down, you can see the truck parked there. And he goes, there was something. He goes, there's this little thing. It looked like a kid walk by the truck. And it opened the door. He goes, the door opened and closed. And we all looked at each other and started questioning, like, did you lock the door? Yeah, I locked the door. And the door on the passenger side opened and closed again. And he goes, we just sat there looking at each other like, what is that? And he goes, that little thing he goes, it looked like a skinny kid. It started running around the truck. And as it was running around the truck, it made a very distinct noise. It was like, it was a woo, woo, woo. And he goes, it was running around pretty fast. He goes, it wasn't normal. And everybody kind of got scared after hearing the sound it made. Was like, let's go back down. So everybody, instead of like, half of them staying up there and the other half going down, everybody followed each other back down because they got scared. And my cousin said, the door was locked. I had to take the keys out, unlock it, and I opened the door. And inside of the cab, it smelled like spearmint, he said. He goes, there's a very strong smell of spearmint. And he just said, I wasn't really scared because he always kept his firearm underneath the driver's seat. So he was like, I wasn't too scared. He goes, I had that with me. And he goes, so we closed the door, relocked it, made sure everything was secured, and then we went back up to the top. And he goes, the same thing happened again. At that point, everybody was like, let's just get out of here. And they're like, okay, fine. So they just came back down, got in the truck, and he said that while everybody was getting the truck, he goes, I turned the headlights on. And the road in front of him, he said there was sagebrush on both sides. And he goes, that thing was behind the sagebrush, and he goes, it was about 3 feet tall. And he goes, it kept jumping up because when it jumped up, he said, I saw its head. He goes, it wasn't very tall, but when it jumped, I saw the profile of it. He goes, it didn't look straight at us. It looked at us from the side, like, it was looking away from us. But he goes, it had a mohawk. The mohawk was like spikes all from its forehead down the back of its head. And he goes, I couldn't get a good look at, like, it didn't look directly at us. It just looked off to the side. When it would jump, it was like, I just saw the profile of it, he said. And then when it jumped across the road, It jumped right in the middle of the road, and he said it didn't even touch the ground. It was probably like a foot off the ground. It didn't. It just jumped into the road and then jumped over across into the sagebrush. But that's the part I regret not asking him. What did its body look like? Did you see any distinct attributes about it? Was it wearing shoes? Did it have any jewelry? Were there any markings? What color was it? Those were the things I failed to ask him. He said it just jumped across the road, and because the headlights were on, everybody saw it. And of course, there were with some girls, and there's always a screamer. Everybody screamed and jumped in the truck, and he was like, I had no choice, but I was like, all right, let's get out of here. So he goes, we drove off. But he was telling me, he goes, I remember that, that Kokopeli, there's one over there by Hovenweep. And I was like, wow, is that just the only one? And he says, no, there's more. He goes, during the Mesa Verde wildfires, while firefighters were fighting the blaze, they told stories. I guess some of the firefighters, the hotshot crews that were out there, they also told stories of encountering something similar like that on Mesa Verde. But of course, no media attention was brought to it because it was something that, people were going to say, oh, you guys are just hallucinating. There were exhaustion. There's always some plausible explanation to cover up what people see. Instead of listening, there's always somebody talking over you, belittling what your experience was. But, that's just how people are. Any questions? Or did I lose you guys? Hello? Shot. One time at sheep camp, I don't know if I lost those guys. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I guess I might as well entertain you guys while our hostesses are away. My uncle told me this story. He used to work construction, and he used to pick his coworker up. And he said that they would always meet before the sunrise. And he was driving over there to go pick his coworker up. And then one time at sheep camp.
Sorry. My son unplugged the internet. I chased him in the room. So sorry about that, everyone. Our bad. But I hope Jamie was a good host for you guys over there on the internet and on the radio. So hope you guys had fun. So Where do we leave? Where did we left off? At? Where did we leave
The
off?
little person.
Oh yeah, the little
A
person.
long time ago, Jeanette.
sorry, but go ahead. Sorry, you can
Okay,
continue.
where did I leave off? Where did everybody?
The mohawk little person running around.
Oh yeah, the little person with the mohawk, the duende.
The Kokopeli.
Oh yeah, the Kokopeli. Okay.
Yeah, he had that experience over by Hovenweep, and he said that during the Mesa Verde fires, that some of the hotshot crews that were fighting the blaze up there shared similar stories of having encounters with something like that up there too. But of course, mainstream media never picked it up because it's always, rather than listening to our stories, there's always somebody out there, over talking us and saying, oh, it was just exhaustion, it was the heat. There's always some plausible excuse to belittle our experiences, is what I said. The other story that I was told by one of my friend's cousins, and this is out of Cortez. She used to have a house behind Safeway and those houses back there. And periodically, she'd have cookouts and she'd invite friends over. And, we would stay the night there or, whatever. Her cousin was like, I'm going to go home. It's late. And she's like, no, you can stay the night here. And he was like, no, I gotta, I don't live very far. So I'm going to go home. So she was like, okay. And it was probably around after midnight at some point, probably like 1 or 2-ish. And he said that he walked across the Safeway parking lot and he crossed the street by Big R. That's a key place to remember, Big R in Cortez. He walked on the dirt road behind Big R. Of course, they got security lights out there, so there is some light, but it's a dirt road behind Big R. And he said he walked behind Big R and he heard something walking. And he thought, okay, let me stop. It might be, a fellow skin walking around out there, another native, he says. And I just sat there listening to his story because my friend was like, oh yeah, my cousin's got a really, something that's gonna interest you. And I was like, all right. So that's when I talked to him and he was telling me this story. So this is just a secondhand experience. It's not my experience. I'm sharing his story. He said that it looked like a native walking behind the sagebrush. He goes, I can see his head. I thought, oh, okay, that's maybe one of those glawnies that walk around back there. So he said I stopped and I was waiting for him to come out from the bushes like on the other side. And he said once he got that person cleared the bushes, he goes, I wasn't expecting to see that, but he was, from his waist up, he was a man. His waist down, he had the body of a horse. And he goes, before he came out, he goes, it just smelled like there was just this rotten smell. Like he was like, I thought, some kids might have killed a dog or, maybe there's something dead out here is what I thought initially. But he goes, I wasn't expecting it to be coming from that thing that I saw. And he goes, when it walked out and I saw the horse legs, he goes, I just turned around and I ran. He goes, I didn't look back. Ran back home, ran inside, locked the door, ran into my room, and I spent the night in my closet, he goes. I didn't sleep in my bed, I slept in my closet. And I asked him, "Do you remember what it looks like?" And he was like, "Yeah, it had dark skin." He goes, "I thought it was a native, but," he goes, "he kind of had long hair." And I asked him, "Do you remember anything like specific about it?" And he was like, it looked like, like when people work out in the sun and you know how they got that dark tan. He goes, that's what he looked like. He had black hair. It was long. And he said he had no shirt on. That's what kind of freaked me out, was like, why is this dude wearing no shirts? What I thought. But then after I saw the rest of him, he goes, I kind of freaked out and I just ran off. And I was like, so is it like how they look in the movies, like what we're told they look like? And he goes, yeah, pretty much. That's what they look like. And I was like, so what are your initial thoughts about it? I told him, and he was like, that I'm not walking around at night in Cortez no more. And I just laughed and I told him, I have a few friends that are from the Ute tribe in Toyac, and they tell stories like that out there. And I would always laugh and say, let's drive around Toyac and like have our own little Zach Baggins ghost adventure. And they would always say, no, you can't, because security will pull us over and tell us go home. So I was like, oh, okay. So, those were stories that they shared, that you see stuff like that out there. And I thought, huh. So they travel between Cortez and Toyac. And they were like, yeah, it looks that way. And I was like, wow. So it was interesting to hear his story, his recollection of what he saw in Cortez. And, some of the stories that I've heard out of Toyac, I was like, wow. Questions?
Yeah. So, what are the oldest stories can you remember being told to you by your grandparents?
The oldest stories that I was told from, let's see, I was always told on Look Ajake Mountain, somewhere on there, there's a cave with a big spider in it. That the cave, it's like it breathes. The draft pulls in and goes out, goes in, and just tell me, so the elders say that there's a spider that's sleeping in a cave there, is what she told me. And I kind of seen it. It's a big gray spider. Like, I don't know, the best thing I can say is like, I would say it's probably like the size of a table, like a dinner table. It's a big spider, is what I seen, just kind of a glimpse in my mind. It's like, huh. Also, the Bigfoot that travel between the Ute Mountain and Look Ajake and the like Buffalo Pass area, they travel between the two mountains. I kind of seen that one like off in the distance. Like, okay, that's interesting.
Is this the part where you're gonna take us into your Bigfoot story?
Bigfoot story that happened over.
Oh, sorry. You can stay in chronologically order if you want. Sorry.
I'm kind of all over the place because I really didn't plan. I didn't plan by chapter, because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, if I made these sketches and I was gonna go by, by picture, but yeah, I'm just going by whatever.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you don't mind your Bigfoot story.
We were camping out. It's on the other side of what is that place called? It's kind of towards Dolores in that area. We were out there getting firewood. So there's a little camp area down in the canyon out there that we stayed at. You know how like when you're out out anywhere, when something's watching you, you get that uncomfortable feeling. You get that sense of like something's watching you. We got that feeling the moment we got there. Like, is it just me, or do you feel like something's watching us? Is what I asked my sister, and she was like, yeah, but it's not creepy. It's just like, I don't know, I can't explain it. She goes, and I was like, neither can I. It's not normal, but I'm not like creeped out by it, is what I told her. And by the time night fell, because there's a river right there, I'd probably, again, around midnight-ish, you can hear it crossing the river. There was two of them. You can hear it enter the water, and when somebody's walking across the river, you can hear it. And it got by our campsite, and you can hear it walking around the tents. But I was asleep, half asleep, and I kind of thought, oh crap, what is that outside? Because there was nobody else that was camping near the side we were at. On the other side, there was like a couple of tents over there. And I kind of thought, that's too heavy for a person, because when it stepped, like, you can feel the weight of it. Like, boom, like when it stepped, like there was, there's, dare I say, some seismic activity. Like you can feel it when it stepped. But it wasn't like a big harsh step. Like you can tell that it was walking gently. And it kind of like circled the camp a few times, and then it kind of got close to where our tents were, because we had 3 tents up. I had my own tent, my sister and my niece and nephews were over here, and then my brother was on one side. And it just kind of like circled our tents, and then it just kind of just walked off. And then in the morning, I asked my sister, I was like, did you know that? Did you hear that too? And she was like, I heard something cross the river, she said. And then my brother goes, did you guys hear that? It sounded like something was walking around the camp, he says. And I was like, so you guys heard it too? And we all, agreed upon it. And then when my brother went over to his truck, because there's a dirt road on that side where we're at, there was like it's kind of grassy. He noticed a set of footprints. We didn't have our phones out or nothing, but he pointed it out. There were 2 tracks, and those tracks are pretty big, too big for a person. And we just kind of looked at it, and then looked at each other like, okay, that was what we saw. But from that experience, I've realized that, how the people always say, smells like a wet dog. That's, there's that musky smell from them. Those are from the males. Females don't really have an odor, because we had kids running around the campsite, so the females were very curious about the kids. So they just kind of came around at night and kind of looked around. They stayed around our campsite for a few nights, because we spent about 3 nights there. And every night they would come around. I did have some apples, and I placed the apples like not near our camp, but kind of a ways on top of, like, in the tree branch. I put a couple of apples there. And the next morning when we went out there to go look at them, they were gone. And we just kind of looked at each other like, hey, that was, it was an interesting experience. We didn't like actually see them, because they always came around at night, walked around the campsite and kind of, looked over us. That was interesting. That's the only time that I've ever been around a Bigfoot, was like, feeling their presence when they came around the campsite at night.
Anything?
So, along that way, do you know of what the Utes say about Bigfoot?
They call him the hairy man, and but their stories are a little a little bit more on the dark side. They would say, if you're up on the mountain, don't walk on the road. Stay off the road. Is what one of my friends was telling me that his his friend's mother told them, because I guess they went hiking up where the foot of the Ute Mountain is. They went for a hike up there, and his mom told his friend and him, you know, make sure you guys come back before it gets dark. If you guys, before the sun sets, and don't stay off the road. If you're going to go up there, like walk alongside on the shoulder, but don't go on stay off the main road, stay off the main trails. And, if it gets really quiet, just don't hang around, get out of there. Is what we were told, he said, because he was like, we didn't listen. We lost track of time and the sun was setting. We're losing light pretty quickly. So, you know, we stupidly stayed on the road and we tried to make it back to the house. And he goes, it got really quiet. Like there were no animals that were making sound. It just got uncomfortably quiet. And then we got that intense feeling of something's watching us. And he goes, when that happened, we realized, oh shit, we're not supposed to be on the road. And we kind of, ran off to the side on the shoulder. And he goes, we just started running and we ran all the way back to the house, he said. And I was just like, wow. So what do you think it is? And he just said, well, my friend was just saying that, that there were hairy men on that mountain and that we're not supposed to be out there at night. It's just, that's just what the elders tell us. He told me, so I was like, wow, okay. But when you look at the Ute Mountain, it's not one mountain range. It's like a cluster of peaks. And I didn't know that there are roads back there. But, I'm not Ute, so I don't drive around back there. But those guys have roads up there. I was told. This is just secondhand knowledge that I'm sharing. But yeah, there's Bigfoot, and apparently there's centaurs on that mountain, from what they tell. So I was like, wow. Jeanette?
How many centaur stories have you heard?
Aside from the one in Cortez, one of the girls I used to know, she said she was driving back home one night, and she said that she swears that there was 5 of them that galloped across the road. And then another guy that I used to know was telling me that one came. It was just the one though. No, 2. There was 2 that came near where his aunt's house was, and he said he thought it was a growl he heard, but the more he kind of listened to it, it made that horsey guttural sound. And he said when he heard that, he just ran back inside. So yeah, that's it. Just those 2 that shared their stories about their interaction, what they saw. The other one, yeah, she said I was driving and she goes across the road. She goes, I thought it was just horses. But she goes, looking up, she goes, a horse doesn't have arms. And she goes, there's 5 of them that ran across the road. I was like, wow. And then my brother actually was telling me that his friend's parents have a hunting cabin on the mountain somewhere. And he said that they were up there hunting, and I guess his dad just kind of waved to him, come over. And he goes, we kind of came up on this little ridge, and we were looking down. He goes, "There's a stream down below us." And he just kind of whispered and kind of gestured to him, "Come over." And he goes, I walked up to him, looked down there. And then he said that his dad said, how's it? Look, just kind of pointed at his eyes and pointed off to, told him, 10 o'clock. Look to your 10 o'clock. And then he said he kind of glanced over quietly and just kind of, and he said there was a centaur that walked out by the river, knelt down, drank some water, turned around and went the opposite direction. And he said that he freaked out. I was like, they're real. And then his dad said, yep, they're around here. Let's go back. And they slowly went back down the ridge and got back to their vehicle. It's like, huh. But again, that story is a third-hand story because it was my brother's friend that shared that with him, and he was the one that, my brother was the one that shared his friend's story with me.
Out of all the strange stories in the Four Corners area, have you heard of the snake girl that was mentioned on J.C. Johnson's channel on the Four Corners Cryptid?
I've heard of like a snake man, like somewhere on the southern part of the Navajo Nation. You know, people that just kind of hearsay. I can honestly tell you that I've never really ventured out on the Navajo Nation all that much. It's just between the Utah side is mostly where I've been, Monument Valley, over to like the Colorado state line. And then on the Arizona side, it was always just like many farms in Chinle, and that was just like to visit family. I've never really driven around like the Saley area or Buffalo Pass. I've been over that a couple of times, but that's during the day. At nighttime, I've never really driven around. It wasn't until 2 years ago I've seen. This is gonna sound pathetic, but I didn't even know where Sholo or Winslow was until 2 years ago when we took a road trip back there. I was like, oh, so this is where this is at. And then we took a drive like through the Window Rock area, and I was like thinking to myself, you know what? I'm an idiot because I've never been out here and I didn't know this place existed. I've never had a reason to go out there, so I've never visited those places. But that's always during the daytime. I'm very curious to kind of run around out there at night and see what I come across, what I see. But it hasn't happened.
What about portals? Have you seen any or heard any portal stories?
You know, on your drive to between Cuba and Albuquerque, there's this little butte that's off to, like, when you're going to Albuquerque, that butte is like off to your right. I don't know what it's called. Does that kind of make sense where I'm talking about? There's a portal on top of that. Let's see. I think that's one of the more bigger ones, that kind of is kind of obvious. There's smaller ones. I think the smaller ones they just kind of happen randomly. I guess they're not always in the same place where people will run into it often. It's just they're kind of random from the stories I've heard. Like where my family lives, I know there's a spot where you can go into a canyon and you're looking for something, but you'll lose all concept of time. Like in your mind, you're thinking you're down there for like 15 minutes, but in to the outside world, you're like gone for 4 or 5 hours. That one I heard from my uncle. I've always wanted to go out there to go take a look, for myself, but I was always pressed not to. So I know that, yeah, there's one near a mesa near where my family lives where that happens. Um, as far as like that cave that I was talking about, there's two of them that I know of. For those that travel down McElmo Canyon, there is a mesa where power lines run. There's one sitting up there. And there's another one on the opposite side of the canyon down by the river. That was, yeah, there's two of them out there. There used to be one, but now there's two.
What about what about the mothership? You seen any huge UFO or crafts in the sky? I have.
Out in Florida.
Oh, Florida? Were you close to the Bermuda Triangle?
No, actually, it was towards the Gulf. It was on the Gulf side. It was in Fort Myers. We were driving through there one night, heading back to Fort Lauderdale, and there were clouds like off in the Gulf, and it just looked like a storm, like just any other storm cloud. But you kind of saw an arrangement of lights that's not normal. And we didn't really stop to look at it because we were driving home. We just kind of looked over, and I was like, "Am I the only one that sees it, or do you see that too?" Because I asked my partner, and he was like, "Yeah, those lights up there." And we just laughed and like UFOs, probably ET. That I did see. Other things like that, yeah, I haven't really had any experiences with UFOs. From family members I have, like out in many farms and Chinle area, they would tell stories like they would see lights off in the horizon, like flying by, and they were saying that sometimes at night they would see like a craft fly overhead. They would see it, but it makes no sound. But I never experienced it. These are just stories that they share with the family, and just like, huh. I would like to go out there and go, experience it for myself, but I haven't gone home for a long time, so I really haven't had the time to go experience that for myself and see for myself what it's like.
Yeah, you should. You should. It's a wonderful sight to see, an experience that you'll never forget for sure. Um, uh, how I found you was through TikTok. One of your videos, you were being followed by Skinwalker that was giving off red light. I was wondering if you can tell me about that video.
Red light. Which video?
Oh, I know that the video started where you were making your way down from hiking. The sun went down, and you turned the phone around. And you were saying that you're being followed, and there was a red light that was coming down from that butte or that mesa towards you.
I think you got somebody else because I don't have a video like that on my page.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you. I got you mixed up with somebody on that one. I was gonna say, can you tell me about that? What happened after that? Because these skinwalkers move around with the red light a lot, so I was just wondering on that. And but yeah, other than that, uh, maybe we can save your story where you came across the Yeti legend, or if you don't mind sharing with us
Oh, the lightning.
the god of fire, the god of
Uh,
darkness.
that one he was Jesus, which one is that one? That one I was at home. It was one of my visits back home on the res, and there was like a skinwalker that had come around, and I kind of thought, I was like, what? I was at that time I was still trying to figure out what it is that they were looking for, what their objective was. Um, it was early in the morning, and I remember he came into the living room, like he just kind of like walked in like by the door, and he spoke in Navajo, and he because I had something on my hand, like there was something placed on me, and I made the um I had like some ash on my hand. It was like just pick it up, so I picked it up. It You can't really see it like when you look at it, but when you like squeeze your hand, you can feel it. Like there was an object. It was kind of it was so weird. Um, before I could even like make heads or tails of it, that thing walked in. He's um he's completely black, but the outline of him was blue. Like when lightning strikes, and you know how the blue flash it makes? It was like that. He was outlined in blue, but he's black. And this was like before the sun rose. It was like right when the sun was gonna like come up. He came in because I was freaking out when I went back to the house. I was like, oh my god, there's something over there. Something came by last night. And um, when I went inside the house, and I was gonna tell my parents that, like, he walked in from the side door, and he goes, that thing you have in your hand, give that to me. And again, like I said, before I could see what it was, I just reached out and he took it. And he goes, this is not meant to be used like this. That's not what it's for. And then as he was turning away, he stopped and he looked at me and he goes, what did he say? There's very few people like you in this world. And then that was it. He walked out the door and I never saw him again. I thought that was weird. Like, I'm questioning myself. Okay, I'm either I didn't eat something, I need a Snicker, is my blood sugar levels low? Like, I was questioning myself big time, like, that's not normal. That's not. But then again, like I said, I've seen a lot of weird things to where I wasn't really scared. I was just trying to rationalize it to myself. Like, what did I see? Was that really what that is? And yeah, it's most of the things that I've seen are like the deities from our story of creation. Um, I've seen water babies. They there's different types of water babies. There are those that drown. They're not nice. They seek to hurt you. And then there are the other ones that are um, I'm assuming those are the water monsters babies. They they look like chubby kids, like chubby little kids playing in the water. And like I remember hearing it laugh. then I kind of thought, and mind you, this wasn't back home. This is when I was out in Florida. When I was out in the ocean. We were down at the beach, and I was sitting out there, and then I heard like splashing, and I'm like thinking, there's no kids around here. There's nobody in the water. Then I looked over, and then that's when I saw two chubby little kids like swimming in the water, and one of them, they're both laughing. And I'm like thinking, okay, that's what I hear, but I'm looking around and nobody else sees them. And I remember one of them laughed and said, in Navajo, Ada otin kisa, Jean Nanashki. And I kind of thought, I did not hear that. And then I kind of glanced back over and they both went under, and that was it. And then like a few minutes later, like I saw a pod of dolphins swim right through that same area. And I just thought, that's either I'm losing my grip on reality or this is interesting, of what I see. And I thought to myself, so when I got home, I told my parents, and my parents were like, how is it that you can, it's always interesting to hear your stories because you have these experiences. And I'm like, sometimes I question myself because one of my friends was like, it sounds like you have schizophrenia. And I'm like, if I had schizophrenia, I would tell you how many different personalities I would have, and I would need to be heavily medicated, but I'm not near that spectrum of, reality. But then again, there's always people out there that will belittle what you see, what your experience is, just so, they rationalize it because the world we live in, the world of academia, will not believe what you see until they have a dead body that they can dissect and examine. They can touch it physically. They'll recognize it. But in the world of spirituality, it's, just, it's just all in your head. It's you. So I've been reluctant in sharing my experiences with people because of that. There's always someone that's going to say, you're crazy. It's just your head, it's you. But one of my cousins, my late cousin, she used to tell me, when you go out with your friends, this is when I was a teenager when she had passed. And she used to always tell me, when you go out with your friends, be careful where you're at because I know you guys always go to bonfire parties. Just be mindful because you're going to see stuff out there at night. You're going to see something that's going to come around and, watch you. And I was like, can you be more specific? And she goes, when you think about it, a lot of our relatives that are, that are Glanies, they share stories saying, oh, I seen this when I was out there. I saw this. I talked to something like this. And we're always so quick to write them off. Oh, they were just drinking. Oh, they were, the Hayashi, they're just imagining it. But she would always tell me, she goes, they see stuff like that because it's you're in a vulnerable state. So that's why they kind of make themselves known. They show themselves to those people because they know that when they recollect their story and their experience, everybody's going to write them off as, oh, they were under the influence. So there's a legitimate excuse right there, a legitimate cover-up. So when people tell you stories like that, some people that that drink, when they tell stories like that, she goes, believe what they're telling you because they genuinely did see something. And that's just kind of how they maintain their anonymity, I guess. And I thought, that really does have some truth to that. That they do see stuff like that, and we're always so quick to take their story as a figment of their imagination.
One more One oh sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just said uh-huh.
I was gonna say one
Could you repeat that? I think I might have lost you. I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear you.
oh okay, there we go. Sorry. Rookie mistake here. Um uh one of the things that I remember you telling me about that story, the god of fire, the god of darkness, you said that he was giving off blue, like a blue orb or blue aura type of deal. He was giving off a blue light, and I've
Mhm.
heard that quite a few times. And I was wondering if you could give us a little detail on what kind of aura he was giving off, what kind of
It
light he
was
was giving.
it's like his body was like dark, like it looked like a shadow basically, but you can see his eyes, you can see his mouth. Um, but the out like the light around him was like a it was it wasn't like a really dark or bright blue. It was like, I would probably say like like when you see like in a something electric when it short circuits, you see that blue flash. That's the color it was around it. Um, Again, like I said, I was a little startled, taken back by again. If I'd taken a if I wasn't thinking what is this that I just saw, I probably would have paid more attention to like if he had any marks on him, what kind of what was he? Did he have any jewelry on? Did he have like a feather or a headband or something? It was just his eyes and him talking to me was the part that kind of took me back. Was I thought to myself, okay, um, there's a person there, but there isn't.
Did you see the Pleiades constellation on his temple?
There were lights on him, like little designs, like kind of like
Eight dots. Yeah.
yeah, like astrology. You know how they have the outlines, how they kind of connect. That's what it looked like on him.
Wow. Yep. That'd be him right there.
Yeah, I do. I do remember seeing a picture of it. Just like you depict, it has almost like stars in the center of its being.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting stuff right there.
Like how you see the map of the constellations. That's how it looks on him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. For all you listeners out there, what he's describing is the god of fire. So he's one of the Navajo deities, one of the sacred deities that we don't share much about, and because it's some things are meant to be kept sacred, and a Navajo can share with you if they want, but not every Navajo won't share with you that about that deity because he's very much real, and without him, we're told that Sasquatch and Dogman wouldn't be possible without him. He's the father. That's what one of the stories I was told. Um, yeah, thank you, Jamie, for
Mhm.
coming on and sharing your stories and spending your valuable time with us here. Appreciate
I
it.
I had a few more stories, but again, like I said, this was kind of spur of the moment. And I kind of just repeated what I some of the stories that I did share on TikTok with like during your little lives. The Bigfoot stories that I've never shared that. The Kokopeli I did share. A couple of the Skinwalker stories I did share. The water babies I never shared that. And my experience in Florida I didn't share that one. So those are relatively new stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other thing that since I've been here, when I was in Georgia, I did see thunderbirds out there.
Oh, damn.
Hmm.
That one, there was two that flew over where I was at, and the part that really, I was just in awe over that because like I was standing by the patio doors looking outside. And when its wings flapped, that's when it made the thunder sound. They're pretty big birds. They're just like what the stories that people tell. They're black in color. They do have markings around their eyes. When the lightning flashes, like the white marks, they stand out. I was just like, oh crap, that's real. Let's see. I just remembered UFO story. Last year, in Atlanta, you probably heard stories of on the news, people talking about how North Carolina and Atlanta, the people that were watching TV lost whatever they were watching, and they heard like a broadcast from the Anunnaki. I never heard it, but I remember people talking about it. And during that time, they were saying that there's some galactic battle going on over this part of the country. That's why we saw a lot of lightnings, and people were talking about that. And I can honestly tell you that during that time, there was a lot of lightning. And those lightnings did not make lightning sounds. They literally did sound like explosions, like something was blowing up, and like the way the lightning moved, it wasn't normal. Like you would see like sparse movements that were like moving in one direction, and then like even the colors were weird. Like there was like orange, there was green, and there was blue. And most thunderstorms, like you see the lightning as blue, but this one the colors were off. And I remember walking outside one night because it was just so restless. Like during that time, I could not sleep. And so I was outside and I saw a Black Hawk helicopter flying over above where I was at. And there was this orb. Like I would probably say the orb is probably roughly the size of a minivan, like that big. But the weird part it was camouflaged. Like you know how the predator, how their camo works? Like you see the outline of it, but you see it's kind of distorted. Does that make sense? That's what it looked like, and it was like it glided above. Like when I looked up, you can see it, and that Black Hawk was right behind it. It didn't like interact with her anyway. It just followed it, and it just like went off into the tree line, and I never saw it again. But the helicopter, I can hear its propellers as it flew over, but the orb it absolutely made no sound. And I was just like, oh my God, what people were saying, fireballs and these strange orbs like in the Atlanta area. Yeah, it happened because I just saw that one that Black Hawk helicopter was following. So I just kind of thought, hey, ET.
Yeah. We're gonna finish out this year, but as soon as we finish out this year, next year I really want to put together another schedule where we can line up a lot of the such as yourself, a lot of great storytellers and people that have amazing stories and accounts, and would be an honor to have you back on again.
Yeah, I kind of had a timeline of stories that I did want to share, but then again, I kind of spaced it out and I kind of came on unprepared. So I wasn't thinking that we were actually going to do this. It was kind of like last minute when you were like telling me, oh, it's going to be tonight at this time, and I thought, it's going to be 10 o'clock my time, and it's going to be late, and I didn't know if I'm going to catch it because I might have to wake up early tomorrow to go to work, but I didn't have to tonight. So I was just like, okay. So yeah, I was a bit unprepared. with a lot of my stories, so it's kind of scattered.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. You can, well, we'll definitely. Definitely, we'll write down and re-listen to this episode and keep a list of the stories you told and the stories you haven't told. I'll remind you in the future when we get you back on.
I'm probably gonna listen to myself like, ew, that's what I sound like.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, other than that, though, we're gonna close up the show right now and probably call it a night.
Yeah.
Jamie, could you remind everyone where to find you on TikTok, if you don't mind?
OF.com. Just kidding.
Sheepherdersonly.com.
Res only. On TikTok, it's ptang12, ptang12.
Yep. Pootie Tang. Heck yeah. That's a great handle.
For those that actually saw the intro, Nez, that's Nasty Nez, Jen.
Nasty Nez. It's not Daddy Nez, it's Nasty Nez.
No, it's Bahia Nez.
Jonathan Nez's handle right there. No, just playing. But thank you again, Jamie.
Thank you for having me on, and I hope I didn't bore you guys too much because it seems like I talked way too much and you guys were just quiet.
No, that's you had a lot to talk about. So thank you for coming on. And
thank you for having me.
You dropped a lot of knowledge on everybody. So, I'm all ears. And, yeah, I am tired. I tell you the truth, guys. I am tired. So yeah, so that's why I didn't really speak too much. I'm just tired. I'm only human. So thank you again for coming on, and everybody who's listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Hitting on. Is there any shout outs you want to give on the radio while you're on the radio?
Thank you for listening, everybody out there, Chiji Navajos. I'm sure I'll probably be sharing some more stories with you guys. Again, there's a lot of stuff that I left out, but there's always a part 2. You got to leave them wanting more.
Oh yeah, leave them wanting more. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's more questions that I have yet to ask you.
Yeah.
And that can be part 2 or part 3. Who knows how many times. But this is a radio show and it's unscripted and it's live. So we'll be looking forward to get you back in pretty soon.
Yeah, maybe I'll share my sheep cap story with the others.
Oh yeah, the sheep camp stories. We had like
one time at sheep camp.
They want to know what happened there. Yeah. But make sure you leave them on a cliffhanger.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. Thank you for coming on again. I'm gonna close this out there.
Right.
You want to say laters to all the listeners again?
All right, everybody have a good night. And again, always be careful what you're around, be mindful of your surroundings, and take care.
Nice. All right. Another awesome show right there, guys.
Yep. Well, thank you for tuning in to Don't Whistle at Night. We have been broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM Gulf Coast in Mississippi. Thank you for listening out there, everyone. Take care. Take it easy. Smile. Glass is half full. Many blessings from us to all you listeners out there. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, good listeners.
All right. I'll go on there. All right. Yeah.
Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.